So it isn't a matter of God. It is a matter of you and of me individually devoting ourselves to attaining God realization. Then we'll find that it's free for all of us equally. It makes no difference what our backgrounds may have been. It makes no difference whether we've been saints or whether we've been sinners. None of that has anything to do with God realization. What has to do is the measure of our devotion, our ability and our willingness to leave the former mode of life, method of life, and turn ourselves to whatever spiritual unfoldments may take place. Now, this class is to cover spiritual healing, starting from the correct letter of truth and going forward to the very highest communion, resulting in realization. Today, spiritual healing is a subject that not only concerns students of the Infinite Way, or the Christian Science Church, or the Kansas City Unity Movement, or the New Thought Movement, but it is now of vital interest to many of the Protestant churches in the United States, in Canada, and in Europe. The whole world is interesting itself in the subject of spiritual healing, and I'll have more to say about that later. At present, there is no textbook which would be suitable for healers or practitioners in all of these different organizations to use. The main reason for this is that in the beginning of mental and spiritual healing, it was the Christian Science Church or Christian Science movement that opened it in this age. And its textbook is based on both a mental and spiritual approach, but not divided so that these subjects may be independently studied. Nor is the book written as an actual textbook for healing, but more for a textbook of the Christian Science faith. The writings of the Unity movement, the earlier writings, are based primarily on the original Christian Science teaching. Christian Science was the basis, the foundation of their early work. And their books were written many, many years ago when the writers were in a pioneer state of unfoldment. The New Thought writings were based primarily on mental healing, such as was introduced by Mr. Quimby and later written on by Mr. Dresser. Also, in those early mental science days, there were Ralph Waldo Trine and Trowad's mental lectures, and these were the basis of much of the work that has been known and understood and practiced in the mental and spiritual field. I don't know of any books written in later years outside of the Infinite Way writings that could be called a basis for any kind of metaphysical or spiritual unfoldment, healing or living. But you must understand this, that since those earlier days, there have been so many years of actual practice that unfoldments had to come. New unfoldments, higher unfoldments, corrections of methods that were in use in the beginning. That which we are doing here is based on more than 25 years of an actual spiritual healing practice. And that is my own experience, plus the experience of a few students. Because the Infinite Way is not a church, nor is it an organized religious movement, nor is it a form of materia medica, we will be able, through our writings, to be used by mental and spiritual practitioners, regardless of their approach to the subject, because we will deal only with certain principles principles which can be put in operation by anyone, anytime, anywhere. You may wonder that I include mental science in that, but I do for this reason. If mental science knew the correct letter of truth, it would do far more healing work than it is able to do now just with the letter of truth, because there is some healing that takes place on that level. Even though it is not spiritual transformation, it is healing in the human sense. And there is no reason why those who are not yet ready to take the spiritual life should not find their health or their supply in the mental realm. The ultimate will be as we attain spiritual consciousness. But everyone on earth isn't ready for that step. So for many of them, materia medica will be the means for a long, long time to come, because they live so completely in a material sense of life that they must have material remedies. Then there are those who have stepped up from complete material sense of life into something of a mental approach to life. And for those, there must be some mental form of healing to replace physical healing. And the letter of truth, more especially the correct letter of truth, is a great help in that direction. And then we come to spiritual healing from there. For those who embark on the spiritual healing ministry, the letter of truth is absolutely necessary as a foundation on which to build spiritual consciousness. The only exception to this rule is the case of those spiritually illumined individuals who have received their healing gift by divine grace. These, of course, will heal regardless of whether they know or do not know the how and the why of the healings taking place. Now, with that as a foundation, listen to this next step. Our healing work does not concern itself with patients. That means with you or me as individuals. Our healing work concerns itself with principles of life. Now, if you were turning to psychology or psychosomatic medicine or psychiatry, the one treating you would be interested in your life, your mind, your state of thought, your body. And they would work from that premise to some conclusion. With that, we have nothing to do, not in our spiritual work, nor even in a correct mental healing practice. We deal with principles. Now, the first principle is this. The word I. The word I has no reference to Joel, nor Bill, nor Mary. The word I means God. Therefore, God being I, God constitutes my being and yours. God is my individual soul and yours. We have in each of us a soul. There is only one soul, but it's yours and mine, just like every fixture in this room. Each one does not have a separate electricity. There is only one electricity, but each of these fixtures are receiving that one and same electricity. And so it is. There is only one God, there is only one soul, but each one of us is constituted of that one God, one soul, one life, one mind in our spiritual identity. Now then, take your first major commandment, whether in the Ten Commandments or the Masters, you find it to be that you must have but one God. When you come to say, yes, but what is God? You will find in Scripture, among other things, that God is a power. So therefore, the commandment means you must have only one power. Now, do you actually have only one power? No. No one in this room has accepted one power, because there is still a fear in this room that someday we will age or die, or someday we may be sick, or someday we may be poor, or someday we may get infected or come into contact with contagion. In other words, every one of us as human beings is accepting two powers, in spite of the fact that 3,500 years there has been a teaching available to us saying there is but one power. Now, not only there is but one power, but you know that I am that power. I is that power. It isn't a power that operates on me. It isn't a power that operates in me. It isn't a power that operates through me. The I of my own being is that power. And it's infinitely good. It never has to be used to overcome error. It never has to be used to heal disease. It never has to be used to create supply. No, no, no. No, because there are no powers of sin, disease, death, lack, or limitation. Remember now, we're not dealing with the world of appearances. In the world of appearances, there is sin, disease, death, lack, and limitation. We are dealing now with principles. Principles that must be brought to your conscious remembrance when you sit down to benefit yourself or others. What you're dealing with is not appearances. You are now disregarding those. You are going to God. You're going into the depths of your consciousness. You're retiring into the inner sanctuary, and there you're going to tabernacle with truth. And the truth is I. I constitutes my individual being and yours, and that I is the only power. Therefore, there is no need for it to be used against sin, disease, and death. It must be recognized, it must be acknowledged, and eventually it must be realized. I in the midst of me is the only power, and rest in that truth. Don't go any further. Rest in it. That's enough. The I of me is God, and the I of me is power, and there are no other powers. Well, as you go further in Scripture, you will learn that God is law. What is God? I. Oh, then I is law. Then I, the I of my own being, is law. But not only that, but since we can have no other God but one, we can have no other law but one. Now, are there material laws? Are there mental laws? Are there financial laws? Are there legal laws? No, I know not any. There is only one law, and I am that. And rest in that. You don't need more treatments. You don't need more mental gyrations. Rest. God is the I of my being. That I is the only power, the only presence, the only law. Why is all this true? Well, you could go all the way back to the Hebrews to find this. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one Lord. Just one. One. Therefore, I am that one. I am that one whether I am Joel or whether I am James or Bill or Mary. I am that one. And all the law and all the presence and all the power, I am that. Please don't be guilty of going out and saying this to somebody or writing it in an article, because you'll be talking about a human being and claiming divinity for it. And that'll be a sin. That's a sin against the Holy Ghost. Only in the depths of your sacred and your secret being dare you accept the truth that the I of me is God, the I of you is God, the I of the worm or the mosquito is God. I is God. And that I is the only presence and the only power and the only law. All of the life in this world is embodied in I. All of the truth, all of the love is embodied in I. And as you ponder that, as you dwell on that, it fills your consciousness, and you need not speak truth to anyone you meet. What you are entertaining in your consciousness becomes evident. If you are leading a life of reading spiritual literature and keeping your thoughts on spiritual things, there is something in your face that shows it forth. If you are busy dissipating and drinking and running around in this world of worlds, it's showing in your face. And so it is with this. Whatever truths you are entertaining in your consciousness is producing healings for the world that touches you without your ever voicing one word of truth to them. That is why outside of our classrooms or outside of my work with our students, I am very stingy with truth. Very. I voice it very seldom, except in our own circles. When I'm traveling in hotels or planes or wherever I may be and questions arise about my work or why I'm traveling, oh, well, I write. And usually that's enough. As a matter of fact, I receive quite some honors because I'm a writer. It's only when they get nosy and want to know what I write and say God that then they quit me. They lose all interest. As a writer, I'm quite a famous person. But as an author of books about God, I'm something to be avoided. So to prevent that, I don't often mention that I write about God. I'm just a writer. Yes, philosophy. The reason is this. Those receptive and responsive to any spiritual impulse will be blessed by any individual who maintains truth in their consciousness and who lets truth abide in their consciousness, and they need not voice it, although when a direct question is asked, the right answer is given them. But I can assure you of this, that the right answer is never, I am God, or I am spirit, or I am spiritual, or I am a child of God. You'll never be given such statements if you're really resting on spirit. More than likely, you will be pointing out that God's grace is my sufficiency, or that I lean more on God than on material things. And I may speak a lot about God and the I, but I do not speak of it as if it were I, Joel, claiming all that Godhood. But when you are in meditation, when you are in contemplative meditation, when you are contemplating God and the things of God, then it becomes necessary to know that God is not something or somebody separate and apart from you, and there is not a law of God separate and apart from you, nor a presence of God, nor a power of God. The very I of your being is God. I have given you these quotations many times. The place whereon thou standest is holy ground. I and my Father are one. All that the Father hath is mine. I live, yet not I. Christ liveth my life. All of this is to bring to your conscious realization that your God is your real being. God constitutes you. It is for that reason that you have no demonstration to make of health, wealth, safety, or security. How can God have need for those things? How can I have need for those things? I am. I already am. I am that I am. I am he that should come. I already am. All that God is, I am. All that the Father hath is mine. Thou seest me. Thou seest the Father that sent me, for I and the Father are one. Now those are not things to be spoken to the profane thought. Those are things to be taken into secret meditation, contemplation, and realized about your own inner true being and about the inner true being of all mankind. It makes no difference whether they're friend or foe. Remember, we're not dealing with appearances now. We are dealing with principles. Now, it makes no difference if we're talking about a Jew or a Gentile, a white or a black. It makes no difference whether we're talking about Occidentals or Orientals. The same truth is true. I. Where I am, God is. All that God is, I am. The whole presence of power and power of God is in the I that I am. And therefore, if I ride in a plane, I don't. The plane rides in me. And if I go down in submarines, I don't. The submarine rides in me. We live and move and have our being in I. Not I have it in a plane or submarine. No. It has it in I. We live and move and have our being in God. Do you not see, then, that if you were to take the mental approach to life and try to demonstrate something, it would have to be based on the premise that you're a human being and one who is in lack or limitation or sin or disease. And of course you can benefit to some degree by that, but when you do, you're just a human being who is better off than they were before. You still haven't touched your spiritual identity or made way for the kingdom of heaven to be established in you. But if you will start out with our basic principle, I. God is I. I is God. God is the I of my being. I is the God of my being. God constitutes my being. And this I, which I am, embodies all of the presence and all of the power of the Godhead. Now, when I take the second step and realize that since God is one, that there is but one presence and one power, I have no fighting to do, no combating to do, no overcoming. You see that? The overcoming is only in the human being, overcoming his being a human being. That Paul calls dying daily. But you die daily only in proportion as you starve out your human selfhood. Let it die. You let it die by consciously abiding in the word I and in the fact that that I is only one, so that you have only one power. You're not protecting yourself from evil power. That I, being infinite, one, you have no need of safety or security. You have no need of peace. You have no need of anything. That I is self-created, self-maintained, self-sustained. Therefore, it never looks outside of itself for anything. It may say thank you to parents who have left us well off. It may say thank you to employers who pay us abundantly. It may say thank you to husbands who provide for wives or wives who provide for husbands. We may do that, but we may not acknowledge that we are dependent on them or that they are the source of our good. Oh yes, we not only may, we must be grateful to each other for everything that we receive from each other, but we must remember the source. I had it all the time. Always it is embodied within my own being, even though to human sense it comes to me through you or through others. Now you have two basic points there. I. If I do not accept anything for myself, I'm not accepting it for you. What I accept for myself, I must accept for you because there is only one I. And so if you say you're ill and I find that I'm not, I don't have to accept that, do I? And then I don't have to reject it. On the other hand, if I accept the fact that I is God, then I don't have to pay any attention at all to what you say, because I is the God of you. If I learn to respect you, to accept you in my consciousness as God being, I have no fears for you. If, however, I accept you as a human being, then is when I must have concern. Now, the only time then that I have occasion to find fault with anyone on earth is when they're coming to me for this illumination and then acting like human beings. And then I try to knock them down a bit. I don't try, really, but I succeed. Because I don't do it consciously. I am trying to destroy that human sense that they are presenting to me because of my realization and acceptance of their God identity. And if I accept it for them, I expect at least they'll accept it for themselves. And I understand this, that the fact that you come to the infinite way, or rather the fact that you stay more than a month, is in itself evidence that you are trying to break through the appearance of your humanness to the attainment of some degree of realization of your spiritual identity. Now, I is the beginning of your meditation work. What you find to be true of I will appear outwardly as the truth about Joel, or Mary, or Bill, or Jim. So do not concern yourself with knowing the truth about a person. Know the truth about I. Then, realizing I to be our true identity, move on to the second point and realize that that true identity being one, you will have only one power to deal with, one presence, one law, one cause, and I am that. Then you have your two basic points of identity. Actually, when you have those two, the third becomes simple. If you do not readily come into the realization of the first two, the third will help you. The third point is the nature of error. And never believe for a single moment that it isn't the most important of all three of our points in our days of study. It is. Without an understanding of the nature of error, you will lead yourself out into a blind faith. You will lead yourself out somewhere where you will not find your way back. That is one reason from the beginning I've cautioned our students never to refer to the infinite way as an absolute teaching. Don't do it. Don't allow it to be identified with an absolute teaching. And the reason is this. There are two absolute teachings. One of them is an absolute mental science. It hasn't a trace of spirituality in it. It is based entirely on affirmations and denials. It uses the word God and Christ, but it actually means the human mind when it talks about it. Now, that teaching is almost out of existence. There are very few remnants of it left in the world, but here and there it bobs up, more especially out in the far west. I seldom hear it referred to any other place. It had quite a flair for a while, quite a big following, wrecked a lot of people that were connected with it, and didn't bless a lot of others who thought they might be blessed. And as I say, there are very few remnants of it left on earth. But there is another absolute teaching which is based on the allness of God. Insofar as the statement is true, the allness of God is the only fact, the only truth. But it has been my experience that in working with an absolute teaching of that nature, that you are led into a blind alley. And the reason is it does not result in healings, or so seldom does, that no very great movement has sprung up, although it's been in existence for nearly 30 years, I guess. Still, it does not gain wide acceptance. And the reason is there's nothing wrong with it, nothing incorrect, but it doesn't give you the premise on which or from which to work in changing your life. In other words, merely saying God is all, or I am spirit, or I am spiritual, or there is no error, does not change your circumstance tomorrow. You'll find the same tomorrow as it is today. Now, the infinite way is definitely not an absolute teaching in that sense. Certainly it says that God is absolute and God is all, and I am that. But it goes further, and it deals specifically with the nature of error. Can you imagine a person with no metaphysical background coming to you for help, and you saying, God is all, there is no pain? And I say, oh, but what about this toothache? Oh, there is no pain. Well, if you had me for a patient, you'd have me only a short time. I can't take that. I can't take it when you say, oh, now you know better. There is no evil. There is no error. You mean it? Why, certainly. Well, then why am I still in pain if you know all that? Your knowing it should stop this pain. Oh. Well, maybe you didn't do the lesson today. Or you have a Catholic neighbor. Now, let us understand this very clearly. So far as this world is concerned, sin, disease, death, lack, and limitation are very, very real. And they are not likely to be tossed off with, oh, error isn't real. Oh, there's no reality to them. Oh, they're no part of God, so they can't be a part of me. It is necessary to go a step beyond that. And that step we take in our work. And in all of the writings, you will find a chapter, nearly all, you will find a chapter on the nature of error, and even in the books that do not have a chapter entitled The Nature of Error, the nature of error is handled on every page. Now watch this. What constitutes error? Error is made up of beliefs that there is power in certain forms or effects. In other words, if you believe that life is dependent on the heart, that is error. And so it becomes specifically necessary to know that life is not dependent on organs or functions, for life is God and is self-maintained and self-sustained. Or there is a belief that there is power in germs. In some germs it's a very evil power, and some germs a very good power. Some germs are deadly and others are healing. But that's error, because that is placing a power in a form, in an effect called a germ. And there is no power in form or effect. All power is in the invisible, which we call God. And so the error is not the germ, not the bullet, not the weather or the climate. The error is in the belief that these have power. Don't deny weather, don't deny climates, don't deny infection or contagion. Don't deny germs. Don't deny horoscopes. But realize this, that if we start with one God, one power, there is no power in form, no power in effect. And you will be handling error. You will be knowing the nature of error, which is a belief that there is power outside of God, outside of the I that I am. Now watch this. I say to you that this hand is dead, that this hand cannot punch or pet, that this hand cannot give or withhold, this hand cannot receive or give out. This hand is dead. But I can give or I can withhold. I can use this hand to pet or to punch. I do this, not the hand. Do you see that? Now, the error is in the belief that this hand or this heart or this lung or this body can do something or be something. And it can't be anything but an instrument for I. Now, it can be an instrument for good or evil, depending on whether you are operating in the human or spiritual plane. I create good and I create evil belongs to the realm of the cosmic. And it means that I, Joel, have the right to determine whether I shall give or withhold, whether I shall pet or punch. But actually that's not true. The moment I surrender, as we do in the infinite way, the moment I surrender myself to the government of I, which is God, then this hand is not the instrument of Joel, but the instrument of God. Then it has no power to live or to die. It has no power to give or withhold. It has only the power to be an instrument through which God works. So with the body. The human body can be good or it can be evil. It can do good or it can do evil. It can be sick or well, and it can be alive or dead. If you are operating from the standpoint of being man, of being an effect, of being a human, of being immortal. But the moment that you make the transference and say, no, I is God. I live, yet not I. Christ liveth my life. Now the body becomes an instrument through which God lives, through which Christ functions. Then the body can't be sick or well. The body can't be alive or dead. The body can only be an instrument through which God functions. Now it's true that in our earliest stages, we take back our bodies once in a while from God and do with them what we'd like to do. We even let them catch cold sometimes. Oh, there's no harm in that. Those are just lessons for us along the way and opportunities to expand, because none of us can jump into heaven at a bound. Even the Master warned us that the way is straight and narrow, and few there be that attain it. So if you're not completely healthy in one bound or completely virtuous in one bound, don't start criticizing or condemning yourself. Give yourself a little time to get used to the fact that this isn't your body. This is the body of God, the temple of the Holy Ghost. And get used to the idea that God has to function it and not you. That takes time. That's where the element of time comes into this work. But remember this. The nature of error reveals that we are placing power in person or in thing or circumstance or condition, and regardless of what your patient comes to you with, you will find that it is a form of power that they are giving to somebody or something or some lack. And you, on the spiritual path, must realize that that is the error, and that it's not power and not place and not cause and doesn't have an effect, because all of the power and all the glory and all the dominion is in the I that I am. Do you see that? Now, it is a very easy thing to say God is all, and there is no error. It is a difficult thing to demonstrate that. But you will find that it becomes simpler if, when you are called upon for help for yourself or others, you ask yourself, to what are we giving power? Germs, infection, heredity, horoscopes, the calendar, age? Aha, that's what we've been doing. There's the error. The belief in a selfhood apart from God, the belief in a presence apart from God, the belief in a power apart from God, and the belief that there is even a God other than the I which I am. Now you see, you have not only declared the truth, you have handled the error, which was up to then handling you or your patient. Every one of us that has any discord at all is being handled by a universal belief, some universal error. Fear, if nothing else. Doubt, if nothing else. Well, then let's ask the question. Is fear a power? What did we learn about I? I was the only power. Oh, well, then let's fear all we want. I have told our classes about the experience I had in Boston one night when a mother called me from the Benevolent Association. Her child had a high fever, and Practitioner had tried to bring it down and hadn't succeeded, and they had told her to call me and want to know if I would help. And yes, I will. Oh, but I don't know what you can do because my fear is so great for my child. I don't know how you can break through that. And my answer was, oh, don't worry about your fear. As a matter of fact, that's natural for a mother to fear for a child. You just go in the next room and sit there and fear all night. Get it all out of your system and leave the work to me. Because I don't believe that fear can harm God. I don't think that God would allow anything to interfere with its operation. So you go in and be a nice, good mother and fear all you like. Too bad you can't get a cup of coffee there at the Benevolent. They won't serve it. Otherwise, you could stay awake all night and do a real good job of fearing. Well, you know what the answer was. In less than an hour, the mother was healed and the child was healed. Why? Because power was taken out of fear. Now, that's knowing the nature of error. It would be no good to say to that mother, yes, your fears are going to hurt that child, or, well, let's see if we can't get rid of your fear, or there's no use of anything like that. Agree with thine adversary. Agree with thine adversary. So go on and fear, but realize that fear isn't power, God is. A lot of people will tell you they haven't enough faith. Well, don't encourage them to have more faith. It's really nonsense. If they get it, it won't do them any good. It'll be something artificial. Just tell them to go along without faith and leave the whole work to God, since God has enough faith for both of us. God has something more than faith. God has understanding and wisdom. And it isn't your faith that ever does any good. It's God's. It isn't your understanding that ever heals anyone. It's God's. It isn't your knowledge. It isn't your purity. It isn't your good life that helps anyone. It's God. So you might as well get rid of this conceit about a good understanding or being so very spiritual that it helps everybody. It's nonsense. It's God that does the work. And so it is when you are up against someone who fears or doubts or hasn't enough faith, just let them know that it doesn't make any difference, because the power isn't in their faith. The power isn't in their goodness. The power isn't in them. The power is in God. Do you see that? Well, you have here the 3 points that are vitally necessary in an understanding, correct understanding of the letter of truth. These 3 points you must know. They must be the basis of everything you do, whether it's today or 20 years from now. You never will advance far enough to get away from these 3 points. I can assure you, that I never have, and I doubt that anyone else is going to until the period of ascension. While we appear to be in this flesh, it will be necessary to bring to your conscious remembrance that the I is God, not man, not effect. I is God, Spirit. And that I embodies within itself all presence, all power, all law, all cause, and all effect. And then go on from there to the realization that whatever it is that's troubling us is a belief in a power external to our own being, a power in effect, a power in form, a power in person. The Master had to meet that in Pilate. Because of his high position, temporal position, he had to find himself under the law, but recognize, thou couldst have no power over me unless it came from God. So we have to know in judge and jury that there is no power in them. The power is in God. So we have to know when facing infection and contagion, temptation, lack, limitation, there's no power in you. The power is in the God that I am, the power of the I amness within me. Then you will be handling the nature of error so that that error cannot handle you. Then remember this. These statements or thoughts of truth are not power unless they're said when you are in the Spirit. You must first get into the Spirit before you make these statements of truth. Get into the Spirit by realizing these things, by declaring themselves to you. Then when you're in there, then begin to know the truth that makes us free. First, get into the Spirit. If so be the Spirit of God dwell in you, then are you the children of God. Then you are Christ, the Savior. Then are you the Son of God that has power to forgive sins, heal disease, raise the dead. You see that? But if you're not in the Spirit, you're just a human being walking around taking unto yourself powers that you never had and never will have. It is only the Son of God in you that has powers. Paul, an apostle, not of men, neither by man, but by Jesus Christ and God the Father, who raised him from the dead. So it is with us. Paul, an apostle, Joel, an apostle, Jesus, an apostle. Any one of us is an apostle, not by man, not by ordination of man, not by licensing by man, not by receiving an authority from man or organization. That which constitutes our Christhood is an inner ordination from God, which is the Spirit of God in man. And you and I, as human beings, have to lift ourselves into the attainment of that divine sonship. Then do we receive power to become the sons of God. Until then, we are mortals. Sometimes good mortals and sometimes bad ones, and sometimes alive ones and sometimes dead ones, but mortals. We are only immortals in the degree that we attain a measure of that mind which was also in Christ Jesus, as we attain the conscious union with God, as we attain a spiritual contact with the Father within. Now, I think the class is complete, and we can all go back home and call off the rest of these. I would like to tell you this, that the basis of our work this week is the first and second chapters of Genesis. So please read those chapters, first chapter and second chapter of Genesis, and get familiar. I don't mean learn it, but I just mean get familiar with the subjects of them. More familiar perhaps than you are at this moment, unless you have been a student of it. And because all of this has to do with the first and second chapters of Genesis. In that first chapter, you will find a spiritual kingdom, a spiritual universe. And you will find that we are spiritual beings. And you will also find that we do not earn our living by the sweat of our brow, because the crops are in the ground before the seed is planted. We don't live by bread alone. We don't even see by light, because there was light before there was sun. You'll find in that first chapter that we do not live by effect, but by cause. When you come to the second chapter of Genesis, you'll find that little old devil. And you'll find why it is that we are entertaining a sense of separation from God, through which we live by effect. We live by bread. We live by money. We live by the heartbeats. We live by sunlight. We live by all of the things that are creatures instead of the Creator. And that is the lesson that is being exemplified this week. And so thank you.